everybody, welcome to another episode of Alex's Afternoon Art Show. Today we are doing another drawing, as I am wont to do. Today I'm drawing Kyle Katarn because I figured as we're getting towards the end of the year I might as well do something moderately self-indulgent. So we're doing Kyle Katarn from Star Wars the Jedi Knight series and Dark Forces and stuff like that. So we're doing something, yeah, as I say, moderately self-indulgent, and I'm going to be showing off some lighting effects and things like that. That's mostly what I'm going to be doing as our kind of showcase for today's episode. But yeah, I'm trying to think now. Is there anything in particular else? I suppose there's a little bit of posing going on in this as well. I suppose that's something which I should probably explain as we're going. But yeah. Yeah, this is a simple one, which is just a little bit of fun before the end of the year, because this is the second last one we're doing this year. There's only going to be one more, and that'll be the Christmas episode, and that'll be the last one this year. But yeah, so we're nearing the end. So this is just, yeah, I always figured that Star Wars is a very kind of end of year Christmassy sort of thing, so I figured I'd get in a Star Wars drawing before the end of the year, because I don't really do many of them. Just haven't really felt the need to. But yeah, anyways, I'll roll the intro and then we'll begin. I'll start showing off some of the stuff that I've done. Yeah. Okay, so this is what we've got currently. We've got a fairly kind of... I wanted to try and give him a bit of a dynamic pose, because a lot of the kind of poses you generally see are just him kind of holding the lightsaber in a kind of a normal sort of kind of vaguely kind of not super combat-y stance, but sort of relaxed but sort of dynamic. And that's what I wanted here, where it's kind of like it's out and it's still got that kind of like sway to it that you see in a lot of like like Star Wars comic covers. You get that kind of thing where it's just a character holding out the lightsaber, but there's a sort of like there's emotion to it that's happening, and that's what I wanted here. Where there's still emotion to it, there's still a kind of a stoic expression going on, and yeah, his head might be a little big. Compared to the rest of him, his head is looking a little large, but granted, the rest of his body is also coming in, so that is going to accentuate the size of his head a little bit, because his body is kind of coming inwards like that. So you're going to see, even though it's at the side and his arms are coming in like that, you are still going to see that kind of, it is going to kind of squish in his body a little bit. So there's a degree of that which is going to happen. But yeah, there's a few little like adjustments which I made in terms of his design, very minor, because I wanted to keep it mostly the same as what I could find. So realistically speaking, a lot of this comes from his Galaxy of Heroes character model, which is that mobile game. That's the most detailed model you can find that I was kind of working off of, but I was obviously also using a lot of the Dark Forces 2 cutscenes as reference because they're live action, so that's also a good idea to use. But yeah, so in terms of his specific design elements, most of that is coming from Galaxy of Heroes. So he's got obviously his shirt, and then these kind of heavy dark parts which kind of form underneath the armpit, because in Dark Forces they seem to only be on the front. It seems to be like a front strip, whereas on Galaxy of Heroes it kind of tucks under the arm. And it's the same with his single shoulder pad, except the shoulder pad comes more from Dark Forces because it's a little thicker, and I gave it some lining. Never quite understood the shoulder pad, but yeah. And a couple of bits are Jedi Knight as well. In Jedi Knight, I know that he's got the full gloves, which I took in. In some stuff he doesn't have full gloves, but here he's wearing full gloves. And he's obviously still got his gun on his belt, but it could maybe stand to be a little bigger. I might make this a little larger, because his gun is quite large normally. This belt as a whole mostly comes from Galaxy of Heroes, but largely we're dealing with some pretty simple stuff. Nothing too crazy here in terms of the design, nothing too crazy different. The big one that changed was his hair. So in Galaxy of Heroes, he's got a middle parting, which is like quite flat to his face, whereas in Dark Forces and in a lot of stuff, he's got a kind of a sort of a kind of moppy sort of kind of thing going on, where his hair's quite frizzy and it kind of sticks out a little bit at the front. Sort of kind of sticks out at the front and falls around a little bit. But that's sort of what I've taken here, but then I've also merged it with the kind of more formed nature of his hair from Galaxy of Heroes, where it's a very particular middle parting. And then a lot of stuff he's just kind of messy hair, which sort of like tucks back and all this. And then the beard. The beard I made sort of shorter in Dark Forces. It's quite thick. Same with the Jedi Knight games. It's quite thick. Whereas here I've made it a little bit more reserved. A little bit more reserved than it normally is. It's normally quite, yeah, as I say, quite thick. But here it's a little shorter, as it is in Galaxy of Heroes. But yeah, those are the kind of big things which I changed with his design. His lightsaber is actually remarkably consistent, but this time what we're going to be doing in terms of its color is we're going to be going for the blue lightsaber, like from Jedi Knight. Or Jedi Outcast, I mean. Because what's confusing is that in Dark Forces 2, it's green, and then in Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy, it's blue. And seemingly in other stuff it's yellow. I can't exactly find a concrete example here, but in some of the images that I'm seeing in front of me here, some of them are yellow for some reason. So realistically speaking, I'm just sticking with the blue because it's easier to follow. It's easier for me to understand because I played Jedi Outcast, Jedi Academy. I didn't play any of the other ones, so the blue is the one that I know the most. And yeah, here, this is just a little note to remind me what rotation I need to have the canvas at in order to get this straight line, because on Photoshop, when you hold shift, you get a straight line, but you'll only get a straight line compared to your rotation of the canvas. So I need to rotate this at 21 degrees, then I can get this particular straight line, so that I can do the lightsaber later. But that will be a whole other thing. I'll do that later on. That's another thing entirely to worry about. Yeah, I think I might put a little design in the background later. I'll put like the Death Star lights, the Imperial lights pattern, maybe in the, not over the whole background, but like maybe just here or something, so that's where some of the lighting that will be hitting him is coming from, something like that. That he'll have like light around the edge here, and then that will be coming from those lights here, which will come down like that, maybe something like that, something simple. And I'll just have some kind of like red smoke or something. No, probably blue smoke around the bottom of the screen. Something like that. That'll be all we'll do for the background. Nothing too crazy. Simple enough. Simple to follow. Simple and easy. But yeah, as I said, this isn't going to be like a crazy one. There's no like big topic that I have to explain here. Just lighting, which will be later. Obviously, that's painting. They'll be doing that. That's where a lot of the lighting comes in, is whenever I start using the paints. But for now, mostly all the details and everything is all reasonably simple. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, that all like the kind of pretty much all like the big added Star Wars characters in a lot of the expanded universe stuff were all kind of somewhat similar. I feel like Kyle Katarn and Dash Rendar and characters like this are all kind of similar, of the kind of not Han Solos that got added, a lot of those types of things. It's just kind of funny. I suppose that's the character that everyone liked, so I mean, that's the character that everyone kind of emulated whenever they were creating their own. But yeah. Is there anything else I need to say before I get started? I'm conscious now because I've been rambling for 10 minutes already. So I'm just trying to think, is there anything else I need to go through before I just get into it? I don't think there necessarily is. Kyle Katarn is usually kind of characterized as having a little bit of a kind of aged face. I don't know if I'm going to be giving him his touches of grey that he has in Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy. I might not do that. I might just leave his hair as his kind of like normal brown. Because yeah, he's generally characterized as having a slightly older look to him. So I gave him crow's feet because he should kind of have that. And he's got a very intense face, so I gave him just a little line on his forehead there. Just to kind of emphasize the kind of intensity of his face. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else I really need to kind of aggressively go through first. I think I just need to kind of get into it, and then I'll That'll be, yeah, the colors which will be back for. Yeah, this is the thing with Star Wars designs. There's a lot of details in them. So this could be long, could be short. I don't know. I just know that it's just going to be easy enough. It's not going to be too difficult. It'll just be time consuming, if at all. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think I will just begin, and then I'll be back with the colors. So yeah. Okay, so that's my details done. I've gotten the kind of the difficult stuff done. I made the gun a little bigger because it should be big. His pistol is supposed to be very large. It's the same gun that that they use in Andor, if memory serves. So I was using that as reference. But it's I think this is the right length, more or less. I think it probably could stand to probably be a bit longer, but it's definitely about the right thickness. Now it is, at least. But you might have seen there I was tinkering around with adding, because he's got little ties on his shirt. I've chosen to remove them because the problem is if I put them in and I have them down, that'll just add too many lines here, so this will become hard for me to parse. That'll be difficult for you to parse by proxy. And I was like, okay, what if I add them like flowing like this because of the movement? Problem is, if I do that, it also obscures stuff, and it's just also not very good looking. But yeah, now we've got the colors to do, and I think before I do the colors, I'm just going to do the colors normally. I'm not going to do them with like any particular skew in terms of anything. I'm just going to do them as I would normally, and then I'll just let the painting and then the color grade afterwards with the gradient map do the color correcting. I'm not going to bother doing that now. But I think I'm actually going to do the background first, because I'll need to do the shapes of the kind of the Imperial lights. I'll need to do that, which will take a minute. I'll have them be pretty big, so I don't have to do a ton of them. But I'll probably do like one pattern of them and then just duplicate. And that'll be how I'll do it, just to save myself a little bit of time, just to make it, yeah, reasonably quick. Because they tend to follow the same pattern, more or less. I'll need to get an image for that. But yeah, I think that's what I'll do first, is I'll do that. So I'll need a solid color. What I'll do is I'll make it blue. I'll make it like a dark, dark blue, like this. Is what we'll do for our background color. Something like that. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Something like that. Might even brighten it up a tiny bit, because we don't want it to be too dark, I think. I don't actually think I did anything there. Might actually make it a little just darker like that, as opposed to it just being super, super blue right around there. Brighten it up a tiny bit. And then I will run through, do these little bits of lights and stuff like that, and then I'll return. Well, no, I'll do the colors, then I'll return. I think. Yeah, I'll return and then I'll do the... I'll probably do the lightsaber in this section as well, because I'll be pretty quick. Actually, no, I'll return to do the lightsaber, because that's one of the things I should probably explain. Then I'll do the painting. So yeah, the way I'm going to do this now is I'm going to do the background, sans the smoke. I'll do the smoke whenever I'm doing the paintings. That's got to be more painting. And then I'll do the colors. Then I'll be back to introduce the painting, and I'll also do the lightsaber during that bit. Okay, that sounds logical to me. Okay, so I'll do this. Okay, so that is our colors done. I did the background and everything there, and I was using some trickery to get it done quicker. So I basically only drew one of these, and then I just duplicated it again and again and again, because that's how you save time in this type of a process. But yeah, so I made a bit of a deviation in terms of the colors, because I noticed that in Katarn's what do you call it, design, in his Galaxy of Heroes design, he's got grey trousers, whereas in Jedi Knight, in Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy, he's got brown trousers. And I just figured, for the sake of the color composition, it's easier if I make them grey. I just thought it'd be easier. Because that way it separates these colors a little bit more, because otherwise they'll end up being the same color or a slightly darker brown. That's not enough of a difference really to kind of separate them. But yeah, I figured that'd be easier. I think his hair color might be a little off. It's sort of like a kind of a dirty blonde here that I've made it, but I'll be able to just correct that later as I'm going. His skin is still a little pale, I think. You know what? I'm actually going to fix that right now. I'm going to change his skin tone a little bit. I'm going to make it a little darker. Again, maybe a little redder. And that should help, because I'm feeling like it's a little too it's a little too pale, I think, his skin tone. So we'll do that. That's now his skin tone. And then his hair. His hair I'm gonna change as well. Make this a little darker. Because I mean, in Dark Forces it's pretty light, his hair. But we want it to be a little darker, I think. A little darker and maybe a little browner. Right. I don't want this to actually be too similar in color tone to the brown on the rest of his costume, so we'll just do that. That's maybe too dark, I think. We still want it to be a sort of a lighter color. We don't want it to be too dark. How's that? I think that's looking a little better. I think that's more of what we want. Because his hair in the what do you call it, in Galaxy of Heroes is a kind of a chocolate color, a kind of brown. I believe that's the right term. It's like a chocolate brown, or it's quite a dull brown. It's not very light, but yeah. So I might end up having to make this more closer to black, the background again. Granted, I can do that pretty easily, so we'll see what I do. So right now I got to do the lightsaber. So I'll do this. I may as well do it here now because it'll be more convenient. So we need this to be at 21 degrees. I need to change this to be this. So we're at 21 degrees. Let's see. Now the problem is that they never tell you on Photoshop, which I always find to be a tremendous pain, is the fact that we'll even probably see it here. Yeah, so you can have it be 21 degrees, but not actually exactly be 21 degrees, if that makes any sense. So there is, as you can see here, I'm still within 21 degrees whenever I'm doing this, whenever I'm doing that little wiggle like that. So generally speaking, what I usually say is something can be on the high end of 21 degrees or on the low end of 21 degrees. I am assuming that this is probably on the high end of 21 degrees. No, it's not on the high end. You can see because it's deviating a little bit from my baseline. So let's try that. Let's see how that one looks. It's closer, but still not exact. So we'll pop it just a tiny bit more like that. Let's see, how is that looking? That's completely off. Okay. I think I was closer before. I'm on the wrong layer. That seems good enough. I think I can live with that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a big thick line for our lightsaber. I'm going to go longer than we need to. Now, I'm going to turn off the base sketch in the background, trim up the line like that. And we're going to make it a tiny bit thicker, because we want this to be pretty thick, all in all. So we're going to be trimming this, because as you can see, whenever I've got my brush where it's pretty thick, what ends up usually happening is that the edges will kind of get very hairy, which obviously we don't want. So what I'll do is I'll go over like this to the point where we can see our black line. And then now I will just start trimming off from the edges like that. And because this brush is much thinner, because I've gotten my eraser to be much, much thinner, we're going to end up with a much finer line here. So we're going to end up with a much cleaner edge from that. Assuming it works, assuming it decides to work. I don't know if it's happening. Can't actually see here. Is it happening? There we go, it's working now. I don't know if it was before. We want a roughly symmetrical line here. Again, we're going to end up working. We're going to end up working with a slightly shorter lightsaber than I would normally go for here, just by virtue of the space that we have. And normally, what I do is the lightsabers that I tend to prefer are the prequel-y kind of ones, where they've got a little point on them. I tend to accentuate that point a little more than I probably need to. So I generally give it quite a fine point, something like that. Maybe even slightly more, because that's a little too curved. Maybe do something a bit more like that. So we want it to be sort of central, more or less, where the point is. So let me just do that, and then now we'll have a look, see how that looks. Now again, we're dealing with a bit of a shorter lightsaber here. It's not quite as long as I'd maybe normally have it, but as you can see, it's pretty in line. Again, it's difficult to get it to be perfectly in line. So now we are going to do some outer glow. I'm pretty sure this is what I normally do first. It's been a while since I've done a lightsaber now, so my memory of things is not exactly correct. And here's the question: do we want to go for prequel era lightsaber, or do we want to go with original trilogy? I think I'm going to go with prequel era, so I'm going to give this a really deep blue. That's what I'm going to do. Maybe make it somewhere like there. I want it to be a deep blue. We want a decent amount of spread on this, because this is a big part of this image, for what we're doing here. So we're going to want this to have a decent amount of glow off of it. I want it to glow quite a bit. Now let me tinker around with this color a little bit. Do we want it to be more like this? How does that look? That's a little too dark. Now again, I feel like there's no harm in going a little off color here a little bit, because again, this is not printing, so we don't need to worry about it. And also it should stand out a little bit from what we've got in terms of our what do you call it? Our backgrounds and our character colors. So let's do something like this, I think. Maybe even bring it in a little bit more. Don't want it to be too crazy. We do want it to stand out substantially from the background. So, right, that's what we're dealing with our outer glow. Now I'm going to zoom back in a tiny bit, because the next part is the difficult bit. Because currently, I feel like we've got too fine an edge on our lightsaber. Oh, I went a bit Tom Hanks voice there for a second. But yeah, I generally prefer that where a lightsaber has a little bit of blur to it. So, what we're going to do is, we're going to apply some blur. We don't want it to go too crazy, but we also don't want it to be too subtle. So, I'm going to apply some blur to this. Maybe even... that's maybe too much. Well, that's about 3. 3 should work. And then, because of the way our blur works, it will blur over some of this edge. We're going to want to refine the edge of the lightsaber. So we do still want it to be a fine edge here, but obviously we want these edges to be blurred. Not this one though. We want this edge to be as clear as humanly possible. So we can just erase that and clear up that edge. So now we've got our lightsaber. Now we've got our nice blue lightsaber. And it glows quite a bit. It glows onto his hands, which again is good. It should be doing that, because this is the primary light source we're dealing with here. I feel like I should do some alterations to some of this stuff. So we're going to do this, make this a little darker, a little blacker. So that now we're getting that against lightsaber. The lightsaber stands out a little bit more. So something which I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a clipping mask on the lights. I'm going to change the lights to be pure white so that they stand out a little bit more. Where's that? Now we've got our lights and our background. So that is our lightsaber done, and now it is time to do the painting. So we're going to be going for some reasonably intense lighting here. So I understand that so far this has been a bit of a sleepy one, I suppose, in terms of my intensity here. I'm normally not very intense, but yeah, anyways, we are dealing with a bit of a more relaxed one here, because there's no real crazy topics that I'm going into, just kind of covering the basics, but again, sort of. But yeah, so what we're dealing with in terms of our lighting here is that we're getting heavy light, heavy blue light hitting him from the lightsaber, which is going to be pretty blue. And then the background lights are going to apply, I would say that's where our light line is going to come from, is going to be from the lights behind him. And then around here, around this edge, is going to be where our pure dark is going to be. But I think what we're going to still have is it's going to be dark along this edge as well. Around basically the whole edges is going to be dark, I would think, because that will help us then with the light line. We'll just apply it to that edge, and basically any edge which is visible here. So we'll get a little bit of it here, tiny bit of it along this shoulder, and then around this part here, around both of his back, around, yeah, both sides here. But largely we're going to be dealing with pretty heavy shadow. All our shadow is still going to be blue toned moderately. Perhaps our shadow should be slightly more orange toned. How would that work? Would that work if our shadow is more orange toned? It would look very weird. Where blue is the light and red is the dark? No, maybe we should do something more like this. Have it be purpley, so that it's just at least a little different. And that way then the light is blue. Okay, I'm thinking. I'll figure this out anyways. I will do the painted shading and then I'll be back to do the detailed shading and the light line, and then I'll wrap up. Okay. Okay, that is our painted shading done. So now it is time for the detailed shading. Now, as you can see, I'm really hard committing to the blue tones here. And as you can see, things are looking a little weird. But what's important to note is that you can still see the skin tone a little bit underneath all this. You can still see the beige tone, you can still see the brown tone, you can still see the grey tone. And whenever the detailed shading's done and the gradient maps come on, it will blend it together in such a way of where the tones will still exist, but they will just be very blue now. That's the thing. That's generally what we're going for. And I feel like this is a type of thing which I don't normally address, because I normally just do it, and then whether it works or not is a whole other story. But I would normally just kind of do it. I probably should have put a little bit more blue paint along here, but I didn't. I'm not going to do it now because I have to go and try and recreate that color, and because that is a pain in the ass to do, I'm not going to do that. I'd have to try and like grab the color, which wouldn't technically be the same, but yeah, like obviously the way the blue light is hitting this here is very intense, and so the detailed shading will help disperse that a little bit and bring things a little bit closer, polish them off a little bit. But yeah, so I will do the detailed shading, the light line, and then I'll do the gradient maps. I'll do my little bits of smoke here actually, just before I do any of that. I will run in and, should that be over this? I think it should be over this. I'll do some blue smoke at the bottom of the screen. I'll have it be a kind of a deep blue like this, probably more like that. That's what I'll throw at the bottom of the screen, just some smoke like that. Now, I don't know if it should necessarily be over the lights. I think the lights should probably be over that. I think that's a little better looking. Because I don't think we're going to do the double textures this time. The double textures I think would be a little much, especially with the smoke here as well. I think the smoke should do it just on its own. I think that works for us. That's enough, I think. Just a little bit more like that, and then like that. I think that's good enough. I think that should do for us. So now I will do the what do you call it? I will do, as soon as my brain catches up, yeah, I will do the detailed shading and the light line, and then that should help kind of bring our disparate tones together here a little bit more, because again we're seeing things at a 70% mark in terms of completion, which is the point where things still look kind of weird. That's the thing with a lot of art, is that a lot of the time you will end up making things look worse before you make them look better, and currently we're at the worst part of where a lot of this just looks kind of messy on him currently. If I were to leave it at this, it wouldn't look very good, but once the gradient maps and everything kind of come in, that should clean it all up a little bit. So yeah, I'll do these this detailed shading and light line, and then I'll be back to do the gradient maps. Okay, that is our detailed shading and our light line done. So now it is time. Oh, I'll very quickly sign this because I just realized that was a thing which I didn't do there, which I should have probably done. Just throw it down here somewhere. Just throw it there. There we go. There's the signature nestled in there. And now what are we going to do? We've got to do our gradient maps, and we're going to see how actually, before I do that, fix that. We're going to do, we're going to see how we can make this work. Right, so we're going to want this to be very blue, so dark blue around here. Maybe make it darker than that. And our lightest, we're going to want to be a light blue. Have it be like that, and then in the middle, we're going to want it to be somewhere like here. Is that okay? Is that working for us? Let's have a look and see what that's like on overlay. That is very blue. Make it soft light, make it 60%. This is bringing some of our tones together a little bit more. We're going to have to do a couple of these and have a look at it. Might need to adjust the general idea here a little bit on some of this stuff. We'll have to see. Give me another duplicate. Make this one a color burn. Get 5%. Color burn is interesting here. It's doing some odd stuff. So yeah, this is the thing. You can see that without the gradient maps, all these tones are significantly more visible, i.e. you can still very much see the skin tone, the beige, all this stuff, but then once these go on, it very much becomes tones of blue. Even the smoke becomes much darker, because it all has to blend a little bit more, which I think works well enough. So we've got that on, which means we've got one last thing which we have to throw on, which is our texture. So I'll do a quick save, and then I will grab our texture. This has actually been a surprisingly quick one. I was almost expecting this one to be 2 sittings, because generally speaking these are 2 sittings, but for whatever reason the last couple have been pretty quick. By last couple I mean last 2. I mean the Mr. Negative one, which was the last one I recorded, took only 2.5 hours, and this one's only been 4 hours, which is, again, it's reasonably quick for how long these have been shaping up recently. So let's make the texture kind of subtle. We only want it to be 25%, and then we can turn it off and on, and it just lightens up our lights and everything else a little bit. And it's not super visible on the dark parts, which is good. We want those dark parts to be really dark. We want the contrast to be high again, because that's generally what I tend to go for nowadays, is high contrast. But yeah, I mean that's a pretty quick one all in all. I genuinely was not expecting that to be as quick as it was. Because yeah, I mean the Mr. Negative one was 2.5 hours, and this one was only 4. And then recent memory, like I mean, just to think of one off the top of my head, the Cami one was 2 sittings, and that was like 6 hours I think in total. And I took breaks during this as well. I took multiple breaks, and yet still pretty quick. I don't know, maybe I'm getting my mojo back. Maybe I'm getting my speed mojo back. Yeah. I'm after realizing something here which is really minor, which I'm not going to bother fixing, and it's that this set of lights here should probably be flipped. I.e. it should be the pattern should be flipped. So this is the exclamation mark I exclamation mark I. It should here be I exclamation mark I instead of exclamation mark I. It's a minor thing because you can only really see it here on this block up here, but they should be flipped. It's a minor thing really. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, it makes no difference really. It makes no difference. The pattern's still there. It's still correct, sort of. Because what it should be, and yeah, this should be upside down. This one should be upside down as well. So the way it should be is that if this is going to be like this, then that means this one should be upside down, and then this one's correct. So this one should be upside down, this one should be upside down. All of these should be upside down, and then this one should be upside down. But I'm not going to fix it now, it's fine. It's good enough. I'm not going to change it. You get the idea. You still know that it's the Imperial light pattern. You still know. It's still very recognizable as that. It's not just some random light patterns. And so that much is clear. As I said earlier on, this has been a kind of a bit of a sleepy one, but that's mostly just because I am tired. This is one of the last ones of the year, so I mean, taking it easy. Tell you what, the next one, I'll tell you what, the next one is not going to be as quick as these last couple have been. The next one is going to be long, because I've got a couple of characters to draw in that one, just to give you a bit of a hint as to where that one's going. That's going to be our Christmas episode. This is our last normal episode of the year, and then the next one is going to be our Christmas episode, which is going to be a little bit more of a thing, I suppose. There's going to be a few different... Realistically speaking, it's not that complicated. Like, I don't have crazy stuff to do. I just have more than one character to draw, which is not normally what I do. If there's more than one character, that normally means it's a lot more of a thing. But granted, there's a lot of that which realistically shouldn't take too long. As it stands, this was a pretty easy one, and it was reasonably fun as well. What's funny is that on the screen this looks better than it does on the tablet. On the tablet this is very purple, whereas on the computer screens it's the bright blue, and it's not obviously as really dark. Like this is really dark on the tablet screen, but obviously on computer screens and on other screens as well it will come out differently. So I suppose it depends on how you see it, because yeah, on the tablet screen here for me this is quite purple, whereas on the screen in front of me where I'm looking at the recording it is a lot bluer. So I'm assuming that's kind of how it'll look for most screens, is it'll be pretty blue. But yeah, I think I've rambled enough. I've done enough rambling. But yeah, I enjoyed that well enough. Yeah, it was a nice little different one. It was nice to get a Star Wars one in at the end of the year. It was nice to get to do something a little bit more self-indulgent for a change, of just doing a kind of just a thing for me. I mean, these are all really for me, but like not trying to tie into anything really with any of the with this one. Like, I mean, some of them I generally try to predict some stuff. I'm rarely correct. I try to predict, oh, there might be an announcement of something around this time, so I'll release something which is vaguely like that around that time. Or sometimes it'll just be, hey, I watched this thing recently and now I feel like drawing something like that. With this, it was a case where I was like, I just kind of feel like drawing something Star Wars. And I was like, hey, I've never drawn Katarn ever, which is funny because I quite like Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy. But yeah, so now I have. And with that said, I think I will finally I will wrap this up and then I will leave you. I'll let you go. So realistically speaking, I wonder how long of a video this is going to end up being, because I mean I did a lot of rambling. So I suppose we'll see. Yeah, it's a pretty short recording all in all. But yeah. Anyways, if you like this video, do whatever it is that you normally do. I'm fine with that. I can accept that. Whether that be liking or not. I would of course prefer if you did like it, but you know, I can't make you do that. So if you would prefer not to, that is fine. And it's the same deal. If you want to subscribe, go for it. If not, I can live with that. But I don't need to tell you where the subscribe button is, because you've presumably watched the YouTube video before. So yeah, and if you would like to watch the next video, I will see you next time. If you choose to watch the next video, I will see you next time. I don't know why it's that part of the outro specifically that I always forget. Just very strange. But yeah, anyways, with all that said, I will say goodbye and I will leave you. So, bye-bye.